there, welcome back. And today I'm going to talk Memories of Murder, which is a film from 2003, and it's from Bong Joon-Ho, who you'll probably recognise as the director of Parasite, the big Oscar winner from last year, that won all the awards. He's done a bunch of other great films, but Memories of Murder was the film that broke him through. It was the one that put him on the map in a way that certain directors of certain films would just put them like in everyone's imagination. You know, like people remember who they are, and this was the film for him. It's now getting re-released on the Criterion thing. So, but for a while it was hard to find. Like, I had to buy it on streaming basically to actually see it. But it's finally getting available again, which is nice. Now it stars I'm going to butcher the names. Song Kang-Ho as a detective, the local detective, and Kim Sang-hyun as a detective from Seoul. Right, so these are the two Korean detectives in this film. Of like the local detective, as you'll probably see behind me, you'll probably recognise him from a billion Korean films. He's like everything is good. You know, well, that's probably there are other good films that he's not in, but him in a film is usually a good sign that it's going to be good. He tends to be in good films, and tends to have a lot of range. So, the film is about a serial killer in the 80s, and it's about the investigation into the serial killer. But it's not like a usual serial killer film. This is much more akin to something like Manhunter, you know, where it's about the process of trying to catch them. It's not about the coming out at the last minute and killing the bad killer. It's about the process of, this is a person with a problem who's killing people, doing a lot of damage, and you're seeing the damage done to the community around them and what's going on. And it's about the process, and it's like about the feeling that even if you find who it is, it's not really ever going to be enough. And it's about the kind of obsessions of the detectives more than anything. I mean, the Zodiac went down this road as well, but I think this is a far better film than Zodiac. The Zodiac I found was a bit cold and a bit distance. And this one I feel is much more focused because it's only set in one town and you can get to the points a lot more clearly. And it's got a few protagonists and you get to see them evolve over time. But I just think you get to see them in a much clearer way than you do in Zodiac. So you've got two detectives. The local detective is basically a blowhard, a king in his own mind. He's the best detective I've got, mainly because he's good with people, basically. But he's also he's a bit of a ruffian. He's an ego size of a house. He's lots of problems. But for local crimes, he managed to get the job done. He can deal with things that comes out locally, and his thuggish methods tend to work, even though he's probably put a lot of people behind bars that probably don't deserve it. He's kind of like that kind of Hank Quinlan type you get from Touch of Evil, is like he's self-justified in his own mind. This was a much younger version of that kind of character, someone who has probably done a lot of evil and not realised that, because he thinks he's doing it for the greater good, and he thinks because the badge gives him a pass for his bad behaviour. The other detective is a younger one from Seoul who has volunteers to come over here and come to the local village to try and find out who the killer is, because he's interested in tracking the killer down, because it's a new field and I try to work out these serial killers, because in the 80s serial killers was still a new field. You were getting some popping up over the last 20 years, but they were still trying to work out the psychology of a serial killer, which is a lot less fancy than you get in a lot of movies. It's a much more process driven thing, and this pretty shows you how hard it is to do an investigation, like how horrible it is and how difficult it is and how easy it is for things to go wrong in any investigation, and how hard it is to be a detective doing this, especially if you're not very good at your job. It makes it much harder. Even if you are good at your job, it's hard. One of the fun things is you've seen all the local detectives So there's a guy we can see behind me here who's the partner of our central detective, and he's basically an idiot. He's basically a strong man who goes and beats people up when they need to beat them up to get a confession. He's like the bad cop to the good cop of our local detective, who's actually pretty much a bad cop too. And this guy loves doing his jump kicks. He kicks everybody he can. He's basically a dropout from school who they pulled onto the force because they knew people, and he's like the ruffian that has to be told, no, do not do that. That's not a good idea. Stop it. Because he's just thick. And what's great about this is it's all about how the process of how these characters survived in a kind of a world that accepted their kind of behaviour, but the world is moving on, and new processes are about to begin, and they're starting to feel themselves slowly fall away. But it's also about showing this world, this kind of much rougher world, and how they dislike the new cop that comes in from Seoul to help them, because he's much more methodical. He pays more attention to the details of the case. Like, he listens to other people in the police department who have ideas. Like, there's a female detective who's told me to coffee with the guys usually, but she's the one who it twigs into a possible clue, and he has to force it through so they listen to her. Which, in a lot of films nowadays, could be sort of I've seen that, but it's done really well here. Cause it's not about, oh, look how bad these guys are. It's just like, this is the way it was. I'm just showing you how it was. That's it. Make your own mind up about anybody. The film's got that throughout. It's just like, we're just showing you how they act, how they interact, and judge yourself. We're not going to tell you what you think of anybody, because everyone's flawed and everyone's got their nuances. So even people you think are bad people, you see them in other lights as they go on. You realise it's some of it's own stupidity, and two, it's also just who they are. They don't understand they're doing wrong sometimes, so it's like they don't have the capability to judge themselves. So it's just that how it institutionalises doing this thing, because it's a local police department and no one's really looking at them until this murder came out. It's like, we don't care what they do as long as they don't get caught doing it. Just tell them to behave. You know, and there's that thing, and basically the real world's catching up with them, but they don't quite get that yet. So they've got a serial killer, and they're flummoxed. Like, the first two times, all their evidence gets destroyed because people don't know how to deal with it, and, you know, they do not have a clue. Like, evidence is tampered with just by incompetence. Like, important, there's a shoe print they find, and some farmer's tractor goes over it, ruining their evidence. You know, but of course, then the lead detective tries to fake that shoe print to bug up someone who thinks he's guilty. He doesn't get the idea that if you arrest someone and then another killing takes place, then people are going to realise that you are wrong. He just wants the praise of, oh, I caught the guy. He's almost a child that way. And there's that thing, he doesn't care about planting the evidence to actually get the guy. Again, another Hank Quinlan thing from Touch of Evil. Like, he's not above cheating to get what he wants. This film delights in weird character touches. Like, you see behind me a kid talking to the detective, and he just mirrors everything the detective says and does, which just annoys him because he's in a murder case at the time. Things like that have become really important. There's a character who's mentally disabled, who they try and stitch up as a murderer because he was following one of the women who gets killed, so they think he may have done it, and they're trying their best to stitch him up as a killer, and it turns out he wasn't. But there's so much character in this thing, them dealing with the idea of having meals with this guy before and after torturing him to get him to confess. You know, and then they realise later on there was actually clues within his supposed confession that actually shows that he knew more than he thought. Because the guy is mentally disabled, he didn't understand what he's saying a lot of the time. There's lots of things like that, these weird character beats, and that's what the director seems to delight in. Like, that whole idea of these two thugs in the police department who are just causing havoc and not realising it. Or this new detective who's got his different theories of how to do the job and how they clash. But it's not in a melodramatic way of points given, points taken from either side. It's just like they have to get on with each other and they're just going to be petty about it. Especially the local detective, who really is petty as hell. I mean, there's a really good scene of karaoke where he's singing and he's acting as if everyone should be happy to hear him singing and no one cares. He's a celebrity in his own mind. To him, this is the peak of his life. He's great. Everyone loves him. And they don't realise he's looking at him thinking, you sad bastard. There's just nothing there in his performance to show that he recognises that. Which is great, because the actor knows it, but the character doesn't know it. So the actor plays it really well, like he doesn't get the joke. And there's tons of stuff like that. It's just like this methodology, and it's just slowly the methodology of these small clues that are almost hidden within. They keep on finding certain habits and patterns. But the point of the film is, some of these patterns might just be patterns of life. It's a coincidence, and you don't know, or they could actually be clues to a murder. And you don't know, and detectives don't know, and they're getting more and more frustrated because they can't place together what's going on and why it's happening and what the problem is, and it's just they can't quite place together a way to solve this crime, and it's driving them nuts, and they're slowly turning each other. But as you're watching this, you're seeing them interact with different people in the town and find out stuff about lots of people who seemed kind of normal, who actually aren't. And they're all kind of perverse, and you're seeing the two detectives slowly go mad over time as nothing they try works. Like, everything they do logically should work, but it doesn't, because life's not like that. And it's showing you how difficult it is to actually find any killer who's trying to hide themselves. If someone's really smart, they can hide themselves, and the detectives are jumping at clues they think is clues, which might be clues, but it could also just be a coincidence. And it's just really great how it deals with that. Just a sense of, okay, what's real and what's not. As you go on, you start to lose perspective of, okay, what's important, what's not important. And you start to sense of why the detectives are starting to go slowly nuts, as nothing goes right for them, and people are dying repeatedly in horrible ways, and they can't stop it. And what starts off as like a glory hunt becomes much more like destabilising into their egos and destabilising to their sense of humanity, as they realise that they don't have a clue what's going on, and no matter whatever they do, it's just going to go wrong, and it's not going to work out for them. So this is a film about failure, basically. It's a film about people who fail and are getting frustrated. So don't expect a big Hollywood ending or anything. I mean, this is from 2003. I'm expecting people to have seen it who've watched this video. But don't expect massive successes or anything. It's not about that, it's about failure. I mean, it's one of those ones you cannot talk about without spoiling it, because it's about failure. That's the theme of it. It's how you survive failure, how you deal with failure, and how all your dreams that are presented clearly of what the characters are, and the director's always behind them showing you how they feel, and they have expectations, and audience have expectations, and then he sort of slowly dashes them bit by bit, showing you how each thing is more complicated than imagined, and how it's not going to work out well for them. How some of the decisions are really quite selfish and blind. Sort of like Parasite, really. I mean, he likes his themes. And it's just this sense of people who aren't prepared to deal with that. To deal with the thing that life isn't fair, that things go badly, that times change, they become obsolete, and how difficult it is. And also, the detective from Seoul hasn't to realise he's all this logic behind him, but sometimes life doesn't help you with that. It's almost like, yeah, well, so what? You still can fail. All of these theories are great, but you might have missed the important clues when you're looking for the more obvious clues. And it's just a sense of frustration of the common sense attitude to this doesn't work, which is the local detective. The analytical side of it doesn't work. Nothing works. This guy they cannot find. They cannot figure out They cannot find the one clue. They don't get no luck whatsoever. I mean, they find some patterns like he kills in the rain and things like that, but no one has a clue of why that happens and what's going on there. And it feels random. It feels like a random killer was come in and destroyed their lives and moved on. And that's what's great about the film. It's just this sense of doom for any ambitions. It's just like these cannot catch a break, but it's also about the tragedy of a killing, or what it does to people, and it also shows the callousness that people have when they don't know the person, and then when you know the person who dies, how much more brutalising it is to you, even if you only know them a little, how brutalised it is to have seen someone in full life and have them die in the most horrible way possible. That's a film that really gets the actual immorality of serial killers in a way that a lot of films just gloss over and actually try and make it as cool as possible. And this one's, no, this is horrible. This is irredeemably awful stuff. There's nothing cool about this. This is just the worst thing imaginable. Which is what the film does really well. It just shows you how absolutely horrible this is. And it doesn't fall in love with the technique of solving the mystery. It doesn't fall in love with the mystique of a serial killer. It's just like, this is just horrible stuff and it's a lot tragic. And it's a wonderful film. Highly recommended. Go see it if you haven't seen it. I've probably ruined most of it for you. I'm sure most people watching this film, the video, will have seen the film. So, I hope you enjoyed this. I'll be back soon with some more videos. A lot more fun ones now. So, I'll see you later. Bye for now.